The email arrived at 9:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. Subject line: immediate termination. No warning, no discussion, just cold corporate efficiency from a company I'd helped build for 7 years. I'm Sophia Martinez, and until that moment, I was the Senior Vice President of Client Relations at Vertex Solutions, one of the fastest-growing digital marketing firms in Chicago. My crime? Suggesting we adjust our pricing strategy to keep our top clients from jumping ship to more competitive agencies. Your negative attitude is disrupting team morale, the email read. Translation: I dared to question CEO Michael Bennett's latest cash grab. I sat in my corner office, staring at the sleek downtown skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows that would no longer be mine in about 15 minutes. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd landed or managed 80% of the clients whose payments had funded these fancy offices, including the Italian leather chair Michael now sat in 3 floors above me. Right on cue, HR's Linda appeared at my door, security guard in tow. "We'll need your badge and laptop," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. We'd had lunch together last week. I handed them over without a word, then reached into my desk drawer and pulled out my personal notebook, the one where I'd documented every client interaction, every strategy, every relationship I'd built over 7 years. Michael had never understood that our business wasn't about flashy presentations or expensive lunches. It was about trust, about understanding what kept CEOs awake at night and solving problems they hadn't even recognized yet. "You'll need to sign these," Linda said, placing a stack of papers on my desk. Non-compete agreements, NDAs, standard corporate handcuffs. I glanced at them, then looked up at Linda with a smile that made her step back slightly. "No, I don't think I will. It's standard procedure. It's unenforceable," I corrected her. "I checked with my lawyer 6 months ago when Michael started pushing out other senior executives. Illinois law is quite clear on this." Her face paled. She knew I was right. I'd always done my homework. As security escorted me out, I caught glimpses of my team through the glass walls. Mia, the brilliant strategist I'd mentored for 3 years, looked close to tears. James from Creative was shaking his head in disbelief. They were good people, true talents. They deserved better than Michael's leadership. In the elevator, my phone buzzed. A text from Marcus Reynolds, CEO of Reynolds Tech, one of our biggest clients. "Heard the news. This is a mistake. Call me when you're free." I smiled, remembering Michael's words from our last executive meeting. Clients don't care about individuals. They care about the brand. The security guard walked me to my car, awkwardly trying to avoid conversation. As I put my box of belongings in the trunk, I heard familiar laughter. Michael stood on the smoking terrace above, sharing what looked like a joke with his new executive team. All men, all from his country club, all spectacularly unqualified for their positions. He caught sight of me and raised his coffee cup in a mock toast. I gave him a small wave in return, which seemed to unsettle him more than anger would have. The drive home to my loft in Lincoln Park was surreal. 7 years of 80-hour weeks, missed family events, relationships sacrificed on the altar of corporate success, all ended with a single email. But instead of grief or anger, I felt something unexpected: freedom. Because Michael had forgotten something crucial, something that would come back to haunt him in the weeks ahead. I parked in my garage and carried my box upstairs, past the home office I'd barely used except on weekends. Inside were 3 things Michael didn't know about: a complete business plan I'd been refining for the past year, a list of industry contacts I'd maintained independent of Vertex, and most importantly, a prototype platform I'd developed with a team of freelance developers. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Marcus Reynolds. "Seriously, call me. We need to talk about the future." I smiled, thinking about Michael's dismissive attitude toward client relationships. He thought customers stayed for the Vertex brand, for the fancy offices and overpriced strategies. He had no idea that every major client I managed had my personal cell number, that we spoke regularly about their businesses, their goals, their fears. I opened my laptop, my personal one, not the corporate device I'd surrendered, and pulled up a document I'd been saving for the right moment. Articles of incorporation for a new company, Catalyst Digital Solutions. The name wasn't an accident. In chemistry, a catalyst is something that creates change without being consumed by it. That's exactly what I'd been doing at Vertex, transforming clients' businesses while Michael took the credit. But now, it was time for a different kind of transformation. My phone kept buzzing. More messages from clients, industry contacts, even competitors who tried to hire me away from Vertex. I let them wait. First, I had a call to make. "Anna? It's Sophia. Remember that conversation we had about going independent? How do you feel about starting now instead of next year?" Anna Torres had been my first hire at Vertex, before Michael pushed her out for being too focused on client satisfaction instead of billable hours. She'd landed at a bigger agency, but had been dropping hints about wanting something more meaningful. "Are you serious?" she asked. "What about your non-compete?" "Unenforceable, and I've got 3 clients ready to jump ship as soon as we're set up." There was a pause, then a laugh. "You planned this, didn't you? You knew Michael would eventually show his true colors." "Let's just say I believe in being prepared. Are you in? When do we start?" I looked at my watch, 11:23 a.m., less than 2 hours since that termination email. How about now? By sunset, I had commitments from 5 former Vertex employees, all top performers who'd left or been pushed out by Michael's new vision. Each brought unique skills, client relationships, and most importantly, a hunger to build something better. I ordered pizza and spread documents across my dining room table, market analyses, competitor profiles, financial projections. This wasn't just about revenge. This was about creating something that should have existed all along. A digital marketing agency that actually put clients first. My phone buzzed one last time. Michael's number. I let it go to voicemail. "Sophia." His voice was tense, trying to sound casual. "Heard you've been talking to Marcus Reynolds. Just a reminder about your contractual obligations. Let's be professional about this." I deleted the message and opened my email to find 6 new client meeting requests for the following week. 2 were from companies that had turned down Vertex's pitches, claiming our fees were too high. They'd actually been telling us something different. Our value proposition wasn't strong enough. That was about to change. As I worked late into the night, finalizing proposals and sketching out service packages, I thought about Michael's parting shot from the smoking terrace. He thought he was ending my career. Instead, he'd just given me the push I needed to start something bigger than he could imagine. Tomorrow, I would begin reaching out to clients. Not to steal them. That would be crude. No, I would simply let them know about an exciting new option in the digital marketing space. One led by someone who understood their businesses inside and out. Michael thought he was the wolf, and I was the sheep. He was about to learn an expensive lesson about assumptions. And the best part? He'd never see it coming. 1 week after my termination, I sat in a sleek conference room at the Reynolds Tech headquarters, watching Marcus Reynolds read through my proposal for Catalyst Digital Solutions. The silence was heavy with potential. "This pricing structure," he said finally, looking up. "It's 30% lower than Vertex's, but with more deliverables." "Because we don't have to support unnecessary overhead," I replied. "No marble lobbies, no corporate retreats to Aspen, no bloated executive salaries, just results." Marcus nodded slowly. "And the team?" "Ana Torres handling strategy. James Chen running creative." "Yes, the same James who designed your last 3 campaigns." "Maria Rodriguez managing data analytics." All former Vertex stars who left for the same reasons I did. "Michael's going to have a fit," Marcus mused, a slight smile playing at his lips. "Michael's going to have bigger problems soon," I said quietly. "Have you looked closely at your last 3 reports from Vertex?" Marcus frowned. "What do you mean?" I pulled out a detailed analysis I'd prepared. They've been recycling strategies across clients, even competitors. Same templates, same approaches, just with different logos slapped on. "You're paying premium prices for cookie-cutter work." His face darkened as he reviewed the evidence. I'd spent years building trust with Marcus, and he knew I wouldn't make accusations without proof. "When can you start?" I smiled. "We already have. Check your email. There's a preliminary audit of your current digital presence with specific recommendations. Consider it a good faith demonstration." By the time I left Reynolds Tech, I had a signed contract for twice the budget I'd proposed. Marcus didn't just want to switch agencies, he wanted to send a message. Back at our temporary office, a converted industrial loft in Rigger North that actually had more character than Vertex's sterile space, the team was growing. Word had spread that something new was brewing, and talent was flooding in. "Sophia," Anna called as I walked in. "The Murphy account just reached out. They want to meet tomorrow." Murphy Global was Vertex's second-largest client. I'd personally handled their expansion into Asian markets last year, a project Michael had tried to take credit for at the annual agency awards. "Also," Anna continued, lowering her voice, "Maya just quit Vertex. She's in the break room if you want to say hello." I found Mia making coffee, looking both nervous and excited. "I couldn't stay," she blurted before I could speak. "After seeing what they did to you, how they're running things now, please tell me you have room for another strategist." I hugged her. "I've been saving a desk for you." That afternoon, my phone buzzed with a text from Linda in HR. "Michael's on a rampage." Reynolds' termination letter arrived. 3 other clients asking for their files. He's called 4 emergency board meetings in 2 days. I didn't respond, but I saved the message. Linda had been sending these updates all week, her small act of rebellion against a toxic system. By Friday, we had our first crisis. Michael's lawyers sent cease and desist letters to everyone who'd left Vertex, claiming breach of contract and theft of trade secrets. I gathered the team in our main space. "Who's worried about these letters?" Nervous glances were exchanged until Anna spoke up. "They can't really enforce those agreements, right?" I projected our lawyer's response onto the wall. "All non-compete agreements are invalid under current state law. Client relationships and industry knowledge are not proprietary information. Vertex Solutions has no legal basis for their claims." The relief was palpable. "But that's not why I called this meeting," I continued. "Look around this room. 2 weeks ago, we were all following someone else's vision, working in golden handcuffs. Now we're building something of our own. The question is, What exactly are we building? For the next 3 hours, we mapped out not just a business plan, but a manifesto. Catalyst wouldn't just be another digital agency. We'd be partners in our clients' growth, with skin in the game, performance-based fees, profit sharing, real innovation, not recycled templates. As we worked, my phone kept buzzing with updates from Linda. Michael just fired the entire creative department. 3 more board meetings scheduled. Clients asking questions about staff turnover. Emergency calls with investors. I smiled, remembering Michael's mockery when he'd heard rumors of my new venture. Good luck competing with us. You'll be bankrupt in months. Instead, Vertex was hemorrhaging talent and clients while we grew stronger each day. But the best was yet to come. Monday morning, I walked into a meeting with Universal Brands, Vertex's largest and most prestigious client. Their CNO, David Chen, had been skeptical of Michael's leadership for months. Honestly, David said after I'd presented our approach, "We were waiting for someone like you to create an alternative. Michael's been coasting on your reputation for years. Everyone knew it was you handling the real strategy." I left with not just a signed contract, but an introduction to 3 other potential clients. By the time I returned to our office, the team had popped champagne. "Universal Brands?" Anna asked, offering me a glass. "Universal Brands," I confirmed. "And they're bringing their entire portfolio." The celebration was interrupted by an urgent call from Marcus Reynolds. "Sophia, you need to see this. Michael just sent a company-wide email at Vertex. Someone leaked it to industry blogs." I pulled up the link he sent. Michael's message was a masterpiece of corporate denial. "Recent changes in staffing and client relationships reflect our strategic repositioning. Vertex remains the market leader in digital innovation. Any rumors of instability are competitor-driven propaganda." The comments section told a different story. Former employees shared stories of toxic leadership. Industry insiders posted about declining quality. Clients questioned the strategic repositioning narrative. "Should we respond?" Anna asked, reading over my shoulder. I shook my head. "We don't punch down. Let's focus on building something better." That evening, as I reviewed our growth projections, Linda sent one final update. "Board called emergency session for tomorrow." Heard words like vote of no confidence and leadership transition. I closed my laptop and looked around our office. In just 2 weeks, we'd assembled a dream team, landed major clients, and built a foundation for something revolutionary. But this wasn't about destroying Vertex. It was about creating what should have existed all along, an agency that valued talent, respected clients, and understood that real success comes from lifting others up, not pushing them down. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Michael himself. "We should talk. Name your price to end this." I didn't bother responding. He still didn't get it. This was never about price. It was about value. And he was about to learn the difference. The morning of Vertex's emergency board meeting dawned bright and cold. I watched the sun rise over Lake Michigan from our new office space, a converted warehouse in the West Loop that we transformed into something special. Open collaboration areas, state-of-the-art technology, and most importantly, walls covered in client success stories. 3 months had passed since my termination. In that time, Catalyst had grown from an idea to a force that was reshaping the industry. "Sophia?" Anna appeared in my doorway, tablet in hand. "You need to see this." She pulled up the morning's industry news. The headline made me catch my breath. "Vertex SOLUTION CEO Myscale BNETT Face is board, VOTE. ANICLIENTEXOUS, and STAFFDPRTURES. The article detailed everything: the loss of major accounts, the mass exodus of talent, and most damaging, anonymous quotes from current employees about mismanagement and toxic leadership. That's not all, Anna said, swiping to another screen. Our Q1 numbers just came in. I studied the figures, double-checking to make sure they were real. In just 3 months, Catalyst had achieved what Vertex took 7 years to build. But more importantly, we'd done it the right way. My phone buzzed. A text from Linda. Michael just arrived. He looks terrible. Board members are already here. I set my phone down and turned to Anna. How's the Universal Brands campaign looking? Her smile was bright. We launched the new strategy yesterday. Their engagement metrics are up 300% from their best numbers with Vertex. Perfect timing, I murmured. Just then, Maria burst into my office. The Thompson Group is here for their pitch meeting. And Sophia, you're not going to believe who's with them. I walked into our main conference room and had to suppress a smile. Sitting there was not just the Thompson Group's executive team, but also Robert Chase, chairman of Vertex's board. Ms. Martinez, Robert said, standing to shake my hand. I hope you don't mind me crashing this meeting. I've been hearing interesting things about Catalyst. Not at all, I replied smoothly. We believe in transparency here. The next hour was a masterclass in everything we built. We showed them real results, innovative strategies, and most importantly, a team that worked together seamlessly. No ego, no politics, just excellence. Halfway through our presentation, my phone lit up with another message from Linda. Michael just tried to present a strategic restructuring plan to save the company. Board members laughed out loud. Robert Chase watched us intently, saying little, but noting everything. After we finished, he stayed behind while the Thompson team left to discuss their decision. Impressive operation you've built here, he said, walking around our office. Very different from Vertex. We had a different vision, I replied. Clearly. He paused at our wall of client success stories. You know, Michael told the board you'd fail within months. Said clients would never follow a mid-level executive to a new agency. I smiled. How's that prediction working out? About as well as his leadership. Robert turned to face me. The board is voting today on his removal, but we have a bigger problem. The company is bleeding talent and clients. Our stock has dropped 40% in 3 months. Sounds challenging. It is. Which is why I'm here. He pulled out a folder. We want to acquire Catalyst. I blinked. This I hadn't expected. Full autonomy, he continued. You'd run both companies, rebuild Vertex under the Catalyst model. Michael would be out completely. Interesting offer, I said carefully. Why not just hire me back as CEO? Because this isn't about just changing leadership. It's about changing culture. You've built something special here. Something we need. I looked around at what we created. The energy, the innovation, the genuine joy in our work. I'll need to discuss it with my team, I said. We make decisions together here. Robert nodded. Of course, but don't take too long. The board meets in 2 hours. After he left, I called an all-hands meeting. Every member of Catalyst gathered in our main space as I explained the offer. So they want to buy us? Mia asked. After everything they did. They want to become us, Anna corrected. There's a difference. I looked at the faces around me. People who'd taken a risk, who'd believed in building something better. This isn't my decision alone, I said. We started this together. We decide together. The discussion lasted an hour. People raised concerns, saw opportunities, debated possibilities. Finally, Anna stood up. I think we all know what we want, she said. But the real question is, what would make the biggest impact? I smiled, remembering why I'd hired her first. 30 minutes later, I sat in my office composing an email to Robert Chase. As I wrote, Linda sent another update. Board meeting starting. Michael looks like he's seen a ghost. I finished the email and hit send, then gathered the team again. It's done, I announced. I just sent our counteroffer. Instead of selling Catalyst, we proposed a merger of equals. Both companies would adopt Catalyst's culture and business model. We'd keep both client bases, but transform everything else. Most importantly, we'd retain our independence and values. Bold move, Anna said. Think they'll accept? My phone buzzed with Robert's response. Board reviewing now. Michael just walked out. 20 minutes later, Robert called. The board had unanimously approved our terms. Michael, they informed me, had resigned rather than work under my leadership. The news spread fast. Industry blogs lit up with headlines. Digital Marketing DISRUPTD KTLOEST and VERTEXNERGE in revolutionary deal. Sophia Memartines FRM fired EEXECUTIVE to Industry PIONER. How AASTRTUV transformed a legacy agency. That evening, we hosted a company-wide meeting for both teams. The Vertex employees looked shell-shocked, alternating between hope and skepticism. I know many of you are wondering what happens next. I began. The answer is simple. We build something extraordinary. Not by following old rules or serving egos, but by creating real value for our clients and our people. As I outlined our vision, I saw the skepticism fade, replaced by excitement. By the end, even the most hardened Vertex veterans were nodding. Later that night, as I packed up my office, I found an old photo from my Vertex days, me with my original team, all of us smiling, still believing in the promise of building something meaningful. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Michael, sent from his personal email. Congratulations. You won. I underestimated you. I didn't respond. Instead, I pinned the old photo to our wall of success stories, a reminder of where we started and how far we'd come. The next morning, I arrived early to find our office already full. Vertex and Catalyst teams were working together, sharing ideas, breaking down the walls that had separated them. Anna appeared at my side. Pretty amazing, isn't it? 3 months ago, they fired you. Now you're running both companies. I shook my head. No, we're running both companies. That's what Michael never understood. True success isn't about individual power. It's about building something bigger than yourself. Speaking of building, she grinned. Wait until you see the new client requests that came in this morning. As I walked through our transformed office, greeting both old faces and new, I thought about Michael's mockery the day I left Vertex. Good luck competing with us. He'd been right about the luck part. We didn't need it. We had something better. We had vision, values, and most importantly, we had each other. And that was just the beginning. The divorce papers felt heavy in my hands as I sat in the courthouse hallway, wondering how 15 years of marriage could be reduced to a stack of cold legal documents. My soon-to-be ex-husband, Daniel Harrison, stood across the marble floor, laughing with his lawyer about something probably at my expense. He looked exactly like the wealthy banker he was. Expensive suit, perfect hair, and that smug smile that had once charmed me, but now made my stomach turn. I'm Olivia Wright, though for the past 15 years I've been Olivia Harrison, the perfect banker's wife. I gave up my own career in finance to support his, hosted the right parties, joined the right clubs, and smiled at all the right moments. That's what was expected when you married into the Harrison banking dynasty. Mrs. Harrison, my lawyer, Samantha Porter, touched my arm gently. They're ready for us. It's Ms. Wright now. I corrected her, standing up and straightening my simple navy dress. Time to reclaim my name. Inside the courtroom, Daniel's arrogance filled the space like expensive cologne. He'd fought this divorce every step of the way, not because he wanted to save our marriage, but because he couldn't stand the idea of me leaving him. Control was everything to Daniel Harrison. Your Honor, his lawyer began, my client has been more than generous in the settlement offer. Mrs. Harrison. Ms. Wright, I interrupted quietly. Daniel's jaw tightened. He hated being corrected. Ms. Wright, his lawyer continued, would retain the summer house in the Hamptons and a very comfortable monthly allowance. An allowance? I couldn't help but laugh. Like I'm a child. Well, you'll need something to live on, Daniel spoke up, his voice dripping with condescension. It's not like you've worked in 15 years. Someone has to take care of you. The judge looked between us, clearly sensing the tension. Ms. Wright, you're declining the settlement offer? Yes, Your Honor. I don't want his houses or his allowance. I just want what I brought into this marriage and my freedom. Daniel actually laughed out loud. What you brought in? You had nothing when we met. Everything you are is because of me. I met his eyes steadily. Then I guess I have nothing to lose. The next hour was a blur of legal terms and asset divisions. In the end, I walked away with my personal savings, my car, and my education, an MBA from Wharton that Daniel loved to pretend didn't exist. He kept the houses, the boats, the country club memberships, and his precious family name. As we left the courtroom, Daniel caught my arm. You're making a mistake, Olivia. You really think you can make it out there? The world's changed since you played at being a banker. I pulled my arm away. I guess we'll find out. Good luck surviving without my money, he called after me, loud enough for everyone to hear. You'll be back within a year, begging for that allowance. I didn't turn around. I didn't give him the satisfaction of a response. Instead, I walked straight out of that courthouse into the bright spring morning, got into my car, a modest Audi I'd bought with my own savings, and drove to the small apartment I'd rented in the unfashionable part of town. The apartment was a far cry from his mansion in Greenwich. 1 bedroom, basic furniture, and a view of the neighboring building's brick wall. But it was mine, and for the first time in 15 years, I could breathe. I opened my laptop and pulled up an email I'd received 2 weeks ago, one I hadn't dared respond to while the divorce was pending. It was from Janet Monroe, my old mentor from my banking days. Olivia, heard about the divorce. Time to get back in the game. The industry needs sharp minds who understand both sides of the desk. Let's talk when you're ready. The door's always open. Janet had gone on to become CEO of Atlantic Regional Bank, a smaller but rapidly growing institution that was giving the bigger banks, including Harrison Financial, some serious competition. She'd offered me a job right before I married Daniel, but I turned it down. He'd insisted that no wife of his would work in banking. It would look desperate, he'd said. I started typing my response, then stopped. Picked up my phone instead. Janet, it's Olivia Wright. Are you free for coffee tomorrow? Her laugh was warm and familiar. Finally ditched the deadweight? Meet me at Lorenzo's, 9 a.m. And Olivia? Bring your A game. Things are about to get interesting. That night, I dug through boxes until I found what I was looking for. My old banking certification files, financial analysis portfolios, and most importantly, a thumb drive containing research I'd done years ago on emerging market risk assessment. Daniel had laughed at my little project back then. He wouldn't be laughing soon. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister Kate. Saw the divorce announcement in the society pages. Daniel's people made it sound like you had a mental breakdown. You okay? I smiled, thinking about Janet's email and the plans already forming in my mind. Better than okay, I replied. I'm free. Another text came through, this one from Daniel. The country club called about your membership. Told them you wouldn't be needing it anymore. Enjoy the public parks. I deleted it without responding and went back to updating my resume. Let him think he'd won. Let him believe I was finished. Because while Daniel Harrison was busy playing king of his little banking empire, I was about to remind everyone who I was before I became his wife. And this time, I wouldn't be playing by his rules. I stayed up late into the night, reviewing banking regulations that had changed during my retirement, studying market trends, and drafting proposals based on my old research. By the time I finally went to bed, my small apartment was covered in notes and printouts, and my mind was racing with possibilities. Tomorrow, I would meet Janet and take the first step toward reclaiming not just my career, but my identity. Daniel thought he'd kept me in a gilded cage for 15 years, but he'd forgotten something crucial. Caged birds don't forget how to fly. They just wait for the right moment to spread their wings. And my moment was about to begin. Lorenzo's coffee shop looked exactly as I remembered it from my banking days. Worn leather chairs, brass fixtures, and the kind of quiet sophistication that old money tries so hard to imitate. Janet Monroe sat in her usual corner booth, reading the Wall Street Journal with a half-empty espresso in front of her. She looked up as I approached, her sharp eyes taking in everything: my simple but elegant outfit, my straight posture, my lack of the designer accessories I'd worn as Mrs. Harrison. You look better, she said simply. Marriage never suited you, Olivia. Banking did. I slid into the booth. I'm ready to prove that. Janet folded her newspaper carefully. Are you? Because the position I'm thinking of isn't entry level. It's not even middle management. I need someone to head up our entire risk assessment division. I felt my heart skip, but kept my face neutral. That's a big job. Huge, she agreed. The kind of position Daniel Harrison would kill to influence. We're expanding aggressively, moving into territories his bank considers their divine right to control. She paused, studying me. Of course, having his ex-wife in charge of approving multi-million-dollar loans might create some interesting situations. I met her gaze steadily. I know every trick in his playbook, Janet. Every shortcut, every handshake deal, every way he bends the rules without quite breaking them. Exactly why I want you. She pulled out a folder. Your starting salary would be twice what Harrison Financial pays their division heads. Full benefits, stock options, and complete autonomy in building your team. I opened the folder, scanned the terms. The numbers made me blink. One condition, Janet added. You start Monday. We have major deals pending, and I need someone who can hit the ground running. I'll need to review the current regulatory framework, update my certifications. Already arranged. Your credentials are still valid, and I've got you registered for the updated certification exams next month. She smiled. I've been planning this since I heard about your divorce filing 6 months ago. I felt a laugh bubble up. You always were 3 steps ahead. I learned that from you, actually. Remember the Miller account? I did. It was the last major deal I'd worked on before meeting Daniel. Everyone said it was too risky, but I'd seen something others missed. The loan saved the company and made the bank millions. Speaking of the Miller account, Janet continued casually. Guess who's been sniffing around for a major loan? Harrison Financial. I froze. Daniel's bank needs a loan. They're over-leveraged on some aggressive expansions. Need to shore up their capital reserves before the Fed's next audit. They've been shopping around quietly, but word gets out. She sipped her espresso. The application will probably cross your desk sometime next quarter. The implications hit me like a wave. Daniel's bank, having to come to us for help? To me for approval? You planned this whole thing, I said slowly. Janet's smile was razor sharp. I plan to hire the best risk assessment officer in the business. The fact that it might make your ex-husband squirm, that's just a bonus. I signed the contract right there at the coffee shop. The next few weeks passed in a blur of activity. My small apartment became command central as I rebuilt my professional life. The walls were covered in market analysis printouts, regulatory updates, and competitor profiles. I worked 18-hour days, refreshing knowledge that had lain dormant but never disappeared. My team came together quickly, sharp young analysts who cared more about competence than connections. I poached a few from the big banks, including Harrison Financial, not because of spite, but because I knew talent when I saw it. Word spread fast in banking circles. The ex-Mrs. Harrison wasn't just working again. She was becoming a force to be reckoned with. Atlantic Regional's approval rates were impeccable, our risk assessments thorough and innovative. My old research on emerging markets proved revolutionary when combined with current data analytics. Then came the morning I'd been anticipating. Maria, my assistant, placed a thick folder on my desk. Loan application from Harrison Financial, she said quietly. They're requesting an urgent review. I opened the file and felt a grim satisfaction. The numbers confirmed what Janet had hinted at. Daniel's bank had overextended, making risky bets that looked good on quarterly reports but created dangerous exposure. Now they needed a lifeline, and we were one of the few banks strong enough to provide it. My phone buzzed. A text from Kate. Just ran into Daniel at Le Bernardin. He looked stressed. Something about federal audits? I smiled and typed back. How interesting. By the way, having a little party next week. Professional celebration. Want to come? Wouldn't miss it. Upper East Side crowd still thinks you're living on ramen noodles. Can't wait to see their faces. I was reviewing the loan documents when Jan appeared in my doorway. They're getting desperate, she said. Their CFO called twice this morning. Let them sweat, I replied, not looking up from the papers. Their quarterly filing is due in 3 weeks. That's when things get really interesting. You found something in their application. I pointed to a series of numbers. They've been playing shell games with their asset valuations. Legal, technically, but very aggressive. The kind of thing that makes federal regulators nervous. Janet whistled softly. And with the new banking regulations, exactly. They either get this loan to shore up their positions, or they face some very uncomfortable questions from the Fed. What are you thinking? I closed the file carefully. I'm thinking it's time to schedule an in-person meeting. Applicants of this size deserve personal attention. Janet's smile was predatory. Want me to make the call? No, I said, picking up my phone. This one, I want to handle myself. I dialed Harrison Financial's main number, which I still knew by heart. Risk Assessment Division, please. Yes, I'll hold. This is Olivia Wright, Head of Risk Assessment at Atlantic Regional. We've reviewed your loan application and need to schedule an in-person meeting with your executive team. Yes, it's urgent. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. works perfectly. And please make sure Mr. Harrison attends. As CEO, we'll need his personal guarantees. I hung up and caught Janet watching me with admiration. You've been waiting for this, haven't you? 2 years, I admitted. Ever since he laughed in that courtroom. She nodded. Just remember, this isn't about revenge. No, I agreed, standing to gather my files. It's about justice. And proper risk assessment, of course. That evening, I stayed late at the office, preparing for tomorrow's meeting. I had my team pull every piece of data on Harrison Financial's operations, every market analysis, every potential weakness. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Daniel. Heard you're playing banker again. Cute. Try not to embarrass yourself tomorrow. I didn't respond. Instead, I pulled up the latest Federal Reserve guidelines on banking capitalization requirements and smiled. Tomorrow would be interesting indeed. Because while Daniel had spent 2 years believing I was finished, I'd spent that time becoming exactly what he feared most. A woman who understood not just banking, but power. And tomorrow, he would walk into my office and finally understand what that meant. At precisely 1:45 p.m., Maria's voice came through the intercom. Harrison Financial's executive team has arrived. They're in the main conference room. I took one last look in my office bathroom mirror, adjusting my crimson channel blazer, the first luxury purchase I'd made with my own money since the divorce. My reflection showed exactly what I wanted it to: power, confidence, and not a trace of the demure banker's wife I used to be. Tell them I'll be there in 10 minutes, I replied, gathering my files. Let them wait. Daniel Harrison had kept me waiting for 15 years. Through the glass walls, I could see them getting nervous. Daniel paced the conference room, checking his watch every 30 seconds. His CFO, Maxwell Peters, kept adjusting his tie. 3 other executives I didn't recognize sat stiffly in their chairs, probably wondering why they'd been summoned to a smaller bank for what should have been a routine loan approval. At exactly 1:55 p.m., I walked in. Daniel's face went through a fascinating series of expressions: shock, anger, disbelief, and finally, a poorly concealed attempt at condescension. Olivia, he managed, trying to sound amused. This is unexpected. Ms. Wright, I corrected him smoothly, taking my seat at the head of the table. Shall we begin? Maxwell Peters cleared his throat. Perhaps we should wait for the department head. You're looking at her, I interrupted, opening the first file. Now, about your loan application. Daniel's laugh was sharp, forced. This is ridiculous. We're seeking a $100 million credit facility. Surely the actual head of risk assessment is speaking. Janet's voice cut in as she entered the room. I suggest you listen carefully, Mr. Harrison. Your quarterly filing deadline is approaching, isn't it? The color drained from Daniel's face as reality finally sank in. He wasn't just facing his ex-wife. He was facing the person who held his bank's future in her hands. I started my presentation, methodically laying out every flaw in their loan application, every questionable asset valuation, every regulatory red flag. Years of watching Daniel operate had taught me exactly where to look. Your Midwest expansion was particularly aggressive, I noted, pulling up a chart. 3 bank acquisitions in 6 months, all heavily leveraged. The Fed's new capitalization requirements must be keeping you up at night. Maxwell Peters shifted uncomfortably. We've maintained all required ratios. Through some creative accounting, I finished for him. Legal? Technically, but precarious. 1 bad quarter, 1 regulatory review, and the whole house of cards collapses. This is absurd, Daniel snapped, standing up. We'll take our business elsewhere. Will you? I asked quietly. Before the end of the quarter? We both know every other bank in the region has already turned you down. That's why you're here. Janet smiled from her corner. Sit down, Mr. Harrison. Ms. Wright isn't finished. I pulled out another document, the final nail in the coffin. Your latest internal audit. Interesting reading. I particularly enjoyed the section on risk exposure in your Asian markets. Daniel's face went from red to white. How did you get that? I believe you know Thomas Chen, the analyst you fired last month for raising unnecessary concerns about your exposure rates. He works for me now. The room went deadly quiet. Everyone knew what this meant. Without this loan, Harrison Financial would face a Federal Reserve audit they couldn't pass. Daniel's empire would crumble. What do you want? He asked, his voice barely controlled. I closed my files slowly. Want? I'm just doing my job, Daniel, assessing risk, making sound financial decisions. Isn't that what you always said banking was about? Name your terms. Maxwell interrupted, shooting Daniel a warning look. I laid out the conditions. Atlantic Regional would provide the loan, but with strict oversight provisions. Harrison Financial would need to unwind its riskier positions, submit to quarterly external audits, and most importantly, restructure its board of directors to include independent members. You're trying to take control of my bank, Daniel realized, his voice hollow. No, I corrected him. I'm trying to save it from your ego. You have 24 hours to accept these terms. After that, I'm obligated to share my concerns with the Federal Reserve. The next hour was a blur of technical discussions, terms, conditions. Daniel sat in silence, watching his authority slip away with each passing minute. By the time the meeting ended, Maxwell Peters and the other executives were treating me with a deference that would have been unimaginable 2 years ago. As they filed out, Daniel lingered. You planned this, he said quietly. All of it. No, Daniel, you did this to yourself. I just happened to be in the right position to catch you. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. I made you who you are. That's where you're wrong, I replied, gathering my papers. I was always this person. You just never bothered to notice. After they left, Janet appeared in my office with 2 glasses of champagne. That, she said, was masterful. I took a glass, watching through the window as Daniel's team hurried to their waiting cars. It's not over yet. No, she agreed. But phase 1 is complete. Ready for what comes next? I smiled, thinking of the changes coming to Harrison Financial, the opportunities opening up in the industry, the looks on all those society faces when they realized who I'd become. Absolutely. The next few months transformed everything. Harrison Financial accepted our terms. They had no choice. The story sent shockwaves through the banking industry. The ex-wife, who went from trophy to kingmaker in 2 years, became legend in financial circles. Daniel was forced to step down as CEO 6 months later, after the independent board members discovered even more problems with his leadership. Last I heard, he was consulting in Dubai, far from the New York banking world he once ruled. I kept my position at Atlantic Regional, but now with expanded responsibilities. Janet and I were revolutionizing how regional banks operated, creating a new model of ethical, sustainable growth. 1 year to the day after that fateful meeting, I received a letter from Daniel's sister, Catherine. We'd been close once, before the divorce. "I never thought I'd say this," she wrote, "but you did him a favor. The bank's stronger now than it ever was under his control. He just couldn't see past his own ego to recognize what he had in you." I folded the letter and looked around my corner office. So different from the small apartment where I'd started my comeback. On my desk sat a new photo. Me ringing the opening bell at the stock exchange. Janet beside me, celebrating Atlantic Regional's record-breaking quarter. My phone buzzed. A message from Kate. Guess who I just saw at Le Bernardin? Daniel's ex-girlfriend, the one he left you for. She was having lunch with her new husband, a junior analyst at your bank. I laughed out loud. Life had a way of coming full circle. That evening, I gave a speech at the Women in Banking conference. Looking out at the sea of faces, many of them women who'd been dismissed, underestimated, or pushed aside. I shared my story. Not to gloat, but to show them what was possible. Success, I told them, isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. Later at the reception, a young analyst approached me. "Ms. Wright? I'm in a similar situation. My boss keeps taking credit for my work, telling me to be patient, paying my dues." I handed her my card. "Come see me Monday. Atlantic Regional is always looking for talent." She looked at the card like it was gold. "Thank you. You know, you've become something of a legend in banking circles." I smiled, thinking of that day in the courthouse when Daniel laughed at my chances of survival. "The thing about legends," I said, "is that they usually start with someone being underestimated." As I drove home that night, past the glittering towers of Manhattan's financial district, I thought about how far I'd come. Not just in terms of success, but in understanding my own worth. Daniel had been right about one thing. I wouldn't survive without his money. I would thrive without it. Because in the end, the best revenge wasn't taking his bank or exposing his failures. It was becoming the person I was always meant to be, the person he tried so hard to keep contained. And that person? She was just getting started. When the Wall Street Journal ran their annual Women in Finance issue the following month, my story was the cover feature. The headline read, "The Queen of Regional Banking: How Olivia Wright Transformed an Industry." Daniel sent a copy to my office, a yellow sticky note attached. "Congratulations. You proved me wrong." I added the magazine to my wall of achievements, right next to the original divorce papers. Together, they told a story, not just of revenge or redemption, but of reclamation. Because sometimes the biggest power move isn't taking someone else's throne. It's building your own kingdom.